For the entire offseason leading up to this year, I was telling all of y'all that Colorado was going to be a serious contender to win the Big 12 title. And a lot of y'all said that I was drinking too much of the Dion Kool-Aid. I was deriding him. I was overhyping Colorado. Well, they currently are 4-1 right now. They went on the road. They made a trip to Orlando, and they kicked UCF's butt. And now it's time to have that conversation again about Colorado and just how good is this team? How good are the Buffs year two under Coach Prime? They're good enough to win this conference. The Big 12 is probably the weakest Power 4 conference in all of college football. There are not a lot of good teams in this conference. You see, Kansas State already has a loss. Utah already has a loss. None of the teams in this conference have a consistent pass rush, which means that when they do have to play up against Coach Prime, they're going to struggle to stop that offense because anytime Shedeur Sanders is operating out of a clean pocket, he's guaranteed to dissect your defense. And there's not a single defense that's good enough to slow down Colorado's offense inside of the Big 12 Conference. Now, Colorado defensively, they have shown improvement every single week. Their new defensive coordinator is doing an outstanding job. Colorado is hitting their stride right now. They are playing their best football at the best time, right smack dab in the middle of conference play. And you got Kansas State coming up. You got to play Arizona, Utah. There's not a single team in the Big 12 that Colorado doesn't have a fair shot at being able to win because no team in this conference has a defensive line remotely as good as what Nebraska's was. The key to being able to beat Colorado is being able to get pressure on Shedeur Sanders. In the Big 12, they don't recruit the level of athletes on the line of scrimmage to be able to take advantage of Colorado's offensive line not being that good. And you also don't have any other team in the Big 12 that has two of the best players in college football on the same roster, that being Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Both of those guys are going to be Heisman finalists at the end of the year. We're all talking about how good Travis Hunter is, but we seem to kind of have forgotten just how good Shedeur Sanders is because of all the hate that's out there about him and all these people trying to push these false narratives that are untrue about Shedeur Sanders' characters. Shedeur Sanders is loved and highly respected by his teammates and his coaches. If you talk to anybody on that Buffs team, they're going to tell you that we got a shot to win any game as long as we can protect two. The Big 12 is not the SEC. It's not the Big 10, and it's definitely not as good as what the Pac-12 was last year. The Pac-12 had an all-time great level of football last season. That probably was the strongest that the Pac-12 conference has been within the last decade. You had Oregon, Washington, who were elite teams. Oregon State was pretty good. USC had a down year, but Washington State was pretty solid. Like, you had a lot of depth in the last year of the Pac-12's existence. And Colorado, in a lot of those games, was able to hang around and make them one-possession losses. They played in a lot of games that were decided by 7 points or less. So a lot of people going into this season, they were judging this team based off their record last year. They're a 4-8 team. They're not going to be anything better, but you overlooked the improvements and the acquisitions that Dion has made via the portal, which he pretty much kind of said himself in one of his press conferences that, we made some acquisitions, don't want to call them acquisitions, but let's just be honest. College football, the transfer portal is pretty much the NFL's equivalent to what free agency is. Colorado is the most talented team from just how the roster is constructed than any other team in the Big 12 Conference. You got an unfair advantage when you got the best quarterback in college football along with the best player in college football that somehow has the ability to play both sides of the football. You got arguably one of the best receiving corps in all of college football. Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, LaJohntay Western. Not just Travis Hunter is the only good receiver that they have. Like, all four of those dudes are going to be playing on Sundays next year, and they all are going to be drafted within the first 3-4 rounds of the 2025 NFL Draft. You know, as long as you can protect Shedeur and your defense can show up, there's no reason why Colorado shouldn't make it to the Big 12 title game. You know, and I said this before this season. I got money on it. I placed a $20 futures bet on Colorado winning the Big 12 because I didn't understand why more people weren't talking about Colorado as far as them being a sleeper pick to win this conference when the odds were pretty good. You put 20 down, you can get back $8, maybe $900, and it's a little bit too late because their odds have gone up. But I just felt like with Deion Sanders, although his roster construction is untraditional, you don't really see any other team building their team solely through the portal, not really putting any emphasis on recruiting. But Deion is an untraditional coach. He didn't become a head coach the traditional way where everybody has to pay their dues. They got to put time in, being an assistant coach, then working their way up the ladder, becoming the coordinator, excelling at calling plays, and then getting a head coaching opportunity. Deion Sanders got a head coaching job solely based off his name and his reputation at Jackson State. Did well there and ended up getting an opportunity with Colorado that he seems to be running away with. Deion Sanders is not a traditional coach, so therefore you can't hold him to the same standard that you hold other coaches to because it's just not fair. He is able to do things that no other head coach would be able to do because they don't have his kind of celebrity status. Deion Sanders is the only head coach that, and he could walk into the living room of any recruit and he's universally recognized. A lot of these parents don't know who Kirby Smart is, who Kalen DeBoer or Steve Sarkisian is, but your grandma knows who Deion Sanders is. Your auntie knows who Deion Sanders is. This is a really talented team. They got a really potent offense, and they don't face any team in this conference that's going to be able to challenge their offensive line that much. They could give up 5 sacks and still win, because you're not going to face a D-line like what you faced against Nebraska, which just was able to avalanche you and gave Shedeur pretty much no time to throw the football at all. Hell, some of the defensive lines in the Pac-12 last year that Colorado faced off against, like UCLA with Deanna Lynn and Oregon State, had better defensive lines than what the Big 12 has. This is not a good conference. And that's why I was trying to tell you guys before this season started. The gap in talent between Colorado and the rest of the teams in the Big 12, there isn't any because all of these teams are pretty much on the same level. It's just that you got a lot of programs like Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy and Kansas State with Klieman as their head coach that although they don't have a lot of talent on their rosters, they're able to maximize what they have due to how good they are as coaches. Now, I don't believe Deion Sanders is a bad coach, but he still has some ways to go before I say he's a good coach. But with the level of talent he has on this team, including 2 of college football's best players, there's no reason why Colorado can't have a shot at winning the Big 12 title this year. And this is the last season that Deion gets to coach his kids. He doesn't have any plans on going to the NFL. I don't know how many times he has to tell you fools that he has no interest on coaching at the National Football League level because he only wants to work with young men. Working in the NFL is different than coaching in college football. So look out for Colorado. This team is for real. They are legit. And I still am picking them to win the Big 12 championship this year.